Hi folks, welcome back to Dispossessed. On the show this time I want to talk about the UK political scene. But before we can talk about the specific political scene, we need to talk about who tells you what to think. And that in itself is going to be uncomfortable for some folks, to think that somebody is dictating the way you think. But the reality is that if you watch a particular TV channel for your news, or if you go to a particular Facebook site or anywhere on social media, or if you listen to a particular radio station, whatever it might be, chances are that you're going somewhere for that news that broadly reflects your political views. So that's the first problem, is that you'll get a bias based naturally on what it is you're watching or listening to. But beyond that, you have to think about who is setting the agenda in those particular places. So who owns that TV channel? Who owns that social media site? Who owns, whatever it is, the radio station that you're listening to? Because the fact that these are owned by people, extremely wealthy people, means that those channels are going to be pushing the agenda that suits wealthy people. And broadly speaking, those folks they tend to be right-wing. It's just where they tend to be, because right-wing tends to be more libertarian over tax, and that is their main concern. So the first thing I would say is take stock of what it is you watch or listen to, and ask yourself, who's funding this? Follow the money. That's always a good place to start. And when you follow the money, you'll probably discover some similarities between the people who own the majority of these major media outlets. They're fabulously wealthy, and a lot of them are not domiciled in the UK for the purposes of tax. So they can push their agenda to get the maximum that they want out of the UK economy, to basically squeeze us for their benefit. Whatever happens, they'll pay precious little in tax, because that's the way they get it set up. So that first thread of following the money, you'll recall back in the intro episode, I talked about big business, dark money, and the impact of those two things on our broken systems of politics. Well, again, these people are almost always donors to political parties. And you've got to ask yourself why that is. There's a simple equation that wealth buys access and therefore influence and power. And you and I don't have that wealth. So, we're not making money out of the system, but other people clearly are. Look back at the PPE scandal in the UK during COVID. Follow the money. So you'll find that those people don't want the same things as you and me. You and me, we probably want broadly similar things. Most people in the UK and probably across the world want broadly similar things. You want an education system that will allow people to reach their full potential. You want employment that is stable and meaningful, and where you don't have to work 3 jobs just to make ends meet. You want job security with that. You want affordable housing. You want the cost of living to remain relatively low. We want similar things. We want lower food prices, functional healthcare. The fabulously wealthy don't care about any of those things, because they can afford to buy all of what they need. They can buy their education, they can buy their healthcare, they can buy pretty much everything they need. The only thing they might find themselves concerned about is whether the aviation tax goes up for when they're commuting to and from work in their private jets. So then you need to ask yourself, is the political party that you tend to support going to get those things that you want for you? And I can tell you, in the UK, the answer is no. Broadly speaking, all the major political parties are doing the same thing. We've got Labour in power now. They came in after 15 years of Tory rule. The Conservatives had, from day one, enacted policies of austerity. Labour came in saying they would change things. What have we had since Labour came in? We've had more austerity. And the signs are that we're going to get more again in Rachel Reeves's budget this autumn. So what has been traditionally the two main parties, Conservative and Labour, all both giving us more of the same. Lib Dems, well, they sold themselves out when they joined the coalition government in 2010, where their major platform had been on getting rid of tuition fees for higher education, and in order to get into government they capitulated on that and sold their souls. Reform, don't kid yourself that Reform are the party of change. Richard Tice, I think he lives in Dubai. Nigel Farage, privately educated, independently wealthy from his time in the city. Reform's announced policies so far seem to be that they'll slash tax for the wealthy, they'll loosen gun control in the UK so that we can end up looking like the US with more school massacres. They're not your friends. Reform are not your friends. None of the major political parties are your friends. But the parties are all owned by the wealthy, is the bottom line of what you need to know there. So here's the thing, you're getting austerity. The people who own the media and who therefore own the political parties, they don't care about you. Therefore the political parties don't care about you. You just get an austerity because that is what suits the fabulously wealthy. Remember those things: dark money, big business, and their impact on our broken politics. Money buys access. That is the simple bottom line. So everybody is selling you fear. Have a look at the political parties. The major political parties are all selling you fear. Ask yourself, this is where we're going to come on to what we can do about things. Ask yourself, where is the hope? Who is saying to me, we do want X, Y, Z, rather than we don't want A, B, and C? That I think is going to be the major difference between, for me at least, a party that I could vote for and a party that I couldn't vote for. Because if all you're selling me is fear, I don't want that. I want hope. I want a vision. I want to know what your vision is for a better United Kingdom. And if you're watching this elsewhere in the world, you should be pressing for the same thing from your politicians wherever you are. So you should be asking your politicians, no, don't give me the fear. Don't tell me that whatever it is, immigrants are the problem, or taxation is the problem, or left-wing politics is the problem, or whatever it might be. The problem is that our politics is owned by wealthy people. So who's putting forward the idea of wealth taxes? Well, none of the major parties. And you'll be given scare stories in the press about wealth taxes, saying, no, hang on a minute, if you tax the wealthy, they'll just leave. Well, hang on a minute. A lot of them already have left. Like I said, look at the list of people who are living in Dubai. That doesn't stop them having an influence in the UK. And we're not talking about income tax for the wealth. It'd be nice if they paid some. We're talking about wealth tax, right? Tax on assets. To the wealthy, they've got so much money that all they've run out of things to do with it. They're just buying up the things that you and me used to own. So, give you an example, COVID, work from home. For a lot of people, working from home was actually a lot more productive because they didn't have to spend an hour or whatever at each end of the day commuting. They weren't arriving at work already thrashed. They could get a lot more done. Post-COVID, suddenly, they're all wanted back in the office. Why do you think that is? Who owns those offices? The wealthy. The wealthy were terrified that they would start losing income on their assets because people would be not working in offices and therefore they'd be sitting empty and they wouldn't be getting the rental income. We are really in deep here with the way our country is and our politics is owned by the wealthy. So when people are talking about a wealth tax or not talking about a wealth tax, look out for that. You've got to ask yourself why that is. And the few parties that are talking about a wealth tax, the Green Party, the party that's currently called Your Party, which is this Jeremy Corbyn, Shabana Mahmood thing, they're actually talking about, all right, let's put a tax on wealth and let's put that to use. I'm not telling you to vote for those parties. I mean, there aren't any elections coming up probably where you can. But look at what they're talking about and just decide for yourself. Do you want that more positive vision, or do you want to live with the politics of fear and being told by the incredibly wealthy to focus on a problem over here because the real problem is over here with their ownership of everything? That's the bottom line. That's why they're doing this to you. So I talked about some of the things that I think we all have in common in terms of education, healthcare, housing, the state of the roads, whatever it might be. Give me 3 things in the comments that you would like to see political parties focusing on in a positive way rather than in a negative way. I'd be interested to see what your views are on there, because I think there's going to be a lot of common ground whether you're on the left or the right of politics, and we can use that as the basis for tackling this rot in our politics caused by the very wealthy having money to throw at things. Stay sane, keep your humanity, and make it your mission to make somebody smile today.